The general rule of thumb is that it probably isn't worth it money-wise unless you've got over $200,000 in super. Some people suggest you could do it for as low as $100,000, but generally when you consider the admin fees, the compliance fees, like all the extra fees that go into it, you need to have a pretty solid super balance for this to be worth it.
The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash from Tash and Wes and Ana from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to chat about self-managed super funds. You might see them written as SMSFs. So what they are, who they're for, pros and cons, and whether or not you should be considering one or not. But first, money wins, money losses. What's yours?
I love that I can do the pickup and drop off of my kids. And I know that it's not specifically
win. Full stop. Is it the
full stop win? Yeah. It's not specifically money related, but it is, right? I think so much of what we talk about is having financial autonomy, financial independence over your money, but also your time. And the fact that the way my life is kind of set up is I work from home, everything's close, I can change my schedule, and therefore I can be a more present parent. And I'm going to be honest, like the last 2 years have been really hard with like writing books, and I've had family emergencies and all these things where I felt like I was less present of a parent and maybe a partner. And the fact that I've kind of rolled everything back has just brought so much joy in my life, where it's like, I can be there for my kids' pickup. We can play at the park afterwards. I'm in no rush. It's totally fine. And I don't know, that's brought me so much joy just to be present. And I think that money enables you to do those things. So
yeah. Do you feel like you are present now? Or you're still struggling to switch off with all the other things you're doing? Yeah,
I think I've taken a bit of a break over the last little couple months, like over the holidays, and I really, really needed it. Yeah. So I feel like I am really present. And I tried to be before too. Like when I was with my kids, I would try not to be on my phone or do all those things. But right now I just feel really like embedded in that, and it feels so good.
That's so good.
Yeah. You don't always get to do that.
Yeah. I had a different money win for today, but I might go off yours. Mine will kind of be along the same line. I went to Perth on the weekend for a friend's book launch. And I was just grateful that I can even have the option to just pop over to Perth. Like it's really great to have the money to do that, but also to have the flexibility to just be able to work from Perth that day.
Yeah. And especially because you have family there and friends, so you get to go back. So it's like a win-win. You get to support someone, you get to hang out, and you also get to see family.
Yeah. And having a job where it like doesn't matter if I'm in Melbourne or Canberra or Perth or Sydney, I can still do my laptop stuff wherever I am.
Yeah. The lifestyle design of being able to have the flexibility is so, so important.
Yes. But then I've been struggling with switching off. So it's hard to balance both of those things when you like always have work to do and you're in charge of your work. Like there's always things to think about and things to manage. So definitely pros and cons and hard to balance.
That's what I felt like last year. You know, it was so hard to switch off. And right now it's like I'm trying to find balance. But now the pendulum has swung the other way, where it's like I'm not doing as much work as maybe I usually would, if that makes sense.
There's always more to do. More time to spend with people, more work to do, more friends to see. Yeah.
I just feel happier. And I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Success.
Not that I wasn't happy, just happier.
It's our first money win, so we've not mentioned exact dollar figures.
I know. Yes.
Perfect.
It's important.
Okay. Starting us off, I've seen a lot more questions in my DMs and question boxes recently about self-managed super funds. Have you had many thoughts about this? Have you been thinking, wow, I need a self-managed super fund?
Well, it's funny because I think the financial industry goes through waves, right? All of a sudden there's something hot and exciting, and then the SMSF is it, right? Right now it's like, oh, self-managed super fund is the way to do it and be in control of your money. But there's other ways that you can kind of do that. It doesn't have to be a self-managed super fund. And for some people, for a lot of people, it might not be advantageous.
Yes. Do you have one?
I do not.
No. I don't have one
either.
Do
you have one?
No.
Yeah.
Let's kick it off by talking about what it actually is for anyone who doesn't know though.
So a self-managed super fund, so an SMSF, is a private superannuation fund that individuals manage themselves. So rather than relying on an industry or a retail fund, you're essentially managing it yourself. You can have up to 6 members, all of whom are either trustees or directors of the fund's corporate trustee, and is regulated by the ATO, so the Australian Tax Office, rather than APRA, which usually oversees super funds in general. So the main purpose is still scale to focus on your retirement benefits to its members, so to you effectively.
So you could go with a regular super fund like Australian Super, Uni Super, all of those ones are just like regular super funds. You give them your money. You can pick an option, but mostly they manage it for you. Or you can have a self-managed super fund where you have to set it up and manage it and you have complete control over it. And there are definitely pros and cons to both. Let's go into pros first. One of the main reasons that people do this is because they want control and flexibility over their investments. So with a self-managed super fund, you can pick any shares, ETFs, you can even buy property, crypto, you can buy collectibles. I've heard of people putting like NFTs or Pokemon cards in there as well. And you can tailor it specifically to you.
One of the things I think that I've heard is that you can't buy property that you're living in.
No, it has to be investment.
Yeah. So just wanted to clarify that as well. Another big thing is the tax benefit. So like super funds, SMSFs are taxed at the concessional tax rate. So 15% on investments earned and 10% capital gains tax on assets held for over 12 months. And there's the potential to minimize tax through strategies like franking credits or tax deductions and income splitting.
You can pool funds for bigger investments. So because you can have up to 6 people, you can have family members combine their super balances to invest in larger assets. So for example, buying a property. It's also common for business owners to purchase commercial property through their self-managed super funds and then lease it back to their business.
Yeah, but you can't do this for like a residential where you're renting it back to your family member. No. So just to clarify, yeah. There's also estate planning benefits. So you have more flexibility with passing wealth to the beneficiaries as opposed to a traditional super fund. And in fact, sometimes people will name people in their super fund that can't actually benefit from their super fund. So just be really careful of that. Write a will, by the way. And then there's also the ability to set binding death benefit nominations as well. So you have more control around that.
So all the pros are around mostly the control stuff. Like you have maybe more of an idea of what you want to do with your super fund, or you maybe want to save on fees. So as your balances get larger, you might be like, oh, actually I'm spending maybe 1% to like this super company. I could probably do it cheaper myself. So that's maybe when someone would consider it. But there are lots of cons that come with it too. So the first one is time. They require active management, including compliance, investment decisions, and ongoing admin. The time commitment for managing a self-managed super fund is an average of 100 hours per year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot, actually. Yeah. That's like definitely more than a working week, right? Like,
yeah. That's like 2.5 weeks, 2.5 full-time weeks. Yeah.
So
that's a lot.
If you're taking your holidays, you might have to manage that.
Trustees are also legally responsible for the fund's compliance with super laws, which can be really confusing as well.
There are also really high setups and ongoing costs. So the setup fee is usually around $2,000 to $5,000 for legal and admin fees. And as of 21-22 financial year, the median total cost to run an SMSF was around over $9,000. So quite a lot. There's also ongoing costs. So you have to do the annual audits, which is over $1,500 in accounting fees, the ATO fees, investment costs.
The general rule of thumb is that it probably isn't worth it money-wise unless you've got over $200,000 in super. Some people suggest you could do it for as low as $100,000, but generally when you consider the admin fees, the compliance fees, like all the extra fees that go into it, you need to have a pretty solid super balance for this to be worth it.
Yeah. There's also really strict rules and regulations. So the SMSF must follow the sole purpose test. And this is essentially the fund must only be used for retirement savings. So we kind of talked a little bit about that. So non-compliance can lead to severe penalties, and you can actually be taxed at the top marginal rate of 45%, depending on how that kind of plays out.
There's also limited consumer protections. So unlike industry or retail funds, self-managed super funds do not have a compensation scheme if your investments fail. So if you accidentally get scammed or something goes wrong, it can be really dangerous and you can lose all of your money there.
There are some key considerations before setting up an SMSF. So these are some of the things that you want to be thinking about. Do you have enough super to make it worthwhile? So around 200,000 or more is recommended.
Do you have the time and expertise to manage it? Like it's pretty scary for me to think about if you, like we make mistakes when we're learning. Like we might pick some random ETFs or some random shares that don't do well, which is fine when we're learning with small amounts, but your super is your retirement savings. Like if you go and make a bad decision with that, that could be very detrimental to your future retirement and quality of life. So yes, do you have the time, but also do you know what you're doing enough as well?
Yeah, because if you, for example, didn't know and you had a rental property that you rented out to a family member and that's not what you're supposed to do, you might be in big trouble.
Or you go and buy like one stock that you've heard is going to be really good and then the company goes bankrupt and then your money's gone.
Yeah.
Or you think it's a really cool investment and you end up getting scammed and it's not a real company or the company goes bankrupt or something like that. Like all of these things can happen and you've just left with nothing.
Oh, so scary. The other thing to think about is, are you comfortable taking full responsibility for compliance and investment decisions? So compliance is a whole other ball game that you need to wrap your head around. I do a lot of it in my role at Perler as well, but it is a lot to take on. So you want to make sure that if you don't have the full responsibility, that you have good people in your court, you have a good accountant, you have a lawyer if needed.
A good financial advisor. Yeah. Most people will do this with an advisor, not by themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Will the tax benefits outweigh the costs associated? Big one to consider.
Mm-hmm. Do you need the additional flexibility, or would a traditional fund suffice?
Yes. So why would someone actually go and set up a self-managed super fund despite all of these things going on and all the extra costs? You can have more investment choices.
Yeah, you can invest directly into crypto or into property or buy a bunch of wine. I don't know. That's what I heard somewhere. Someone do that.
Business owners may benefit, especially like we were saying before, buying a commercial property that they can rent to themselves. That might be a benefit for sure.
There's also the estate planning and wealth transfer strategies. So that's beneficial.
And it's just better for higher net worth individuals often because they can afford that advice and they will be saving on fees there. So generally, if you are a higher net worth person with a lot of money in your super, if you're a business owner, or if you really have a specific strategy and you know why you want to do it.
Yeah. So if that seems like the right choice for you, you're like, yes, I definitely want to do this. So how do you actually set up an SMSF? So the first thing you want to do is you want to choose the trustee. So individual trustees or a corporate trustee, whether it's a company structure, is something that you really need to consider.
You'll need something called a trust deed, and you'll need to set up a self-managed super fund trust as well. So you'll definitely need to get legal advice around this.
And then you register the SMSF with the ATO. So you obtain a ABN, so an Australian business number, and you have a tax file number, a TFN for it as well.
You'll need its own bank account as well, so you can receive the contributions and manage transactions.
And you create an investment strategy. So that's really important. We talk about this all the time, but you want to ensure that your risk tolerance, your diversification, your retirement goals are all taken into consideration.
And then you'll need to ensure ongoing compliance. So you'll need to do annual returns, undergo independent audits, and keep records. This is like a very simplified how to set up. In reality, you'd need to chat to an accountant. You probably need to get financial advice. Like you'll need to do all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, it's way more work.
In summary, is it worth it for you? Probably not.
Are you saying for yourself or just people listening?
Maybe because I'm just thinking for myself. I generally, yeah.
So I think it depends on the situation. I have a friend who just set hers up. She has a business. Her and her partner make decent coin. They bought a property within it. They're figuring out how do they work within her business and the SMSF and set themselves up. They might be a perfect example of someone who would want to do that, if they have a large amount of money in a super fund. For other people who might just be working jobs, they're at 100K or less. Maybe it's not advantageous, even if you're thinking of joining it with your partner. It's just really important to talk to a financial advisor to ensure if it's right for you, because that would probably be the first thing I would do.
I see like kind of red flags popping up when I see people talking about it, because I wouldn't want to give someone my money that's like my retirement money. If it's like your partner or a family member being like, oh, we'll just pull our money together for this fun investment. Like if it's not driven by an advisor, I'd be very skeptical of it.
Mm-hmm. There are other ways though that you can take control over your super. And I think that's the big thing, right? With an SMSF, it is about control and being able to choose things. Now, if you're not sure about property or investing in crypto in your super or buying wine, and the reason I keep referring to wine is because apparently this is what happened. It was in an article somewhere, someone invested in wine.
Okay.
Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. But anyhow, there are other ways to do that. So for example, one of the things that I found really weird about super funds when I came here was that I didn't have like the full control of what to invest in. In Canada, we have the equivalent of this, and I can invest in ETFs directly. So you see more and more super funds offering this. So Perler Super is an example of this, where you can invest directly into ETFs. So if that's something that you're interested in, instead of investing in a super fund like a balanced or conservative or high growth, that might be an alternative to having more control without actually having to have an SMSF.
Yeah, I like the Perler one because they've got safeguards as well. So you can't completely do whatever you want. Like they're not going to let you go put all of your super into one random ETF. It is like you do need to have it somewhat diversified and balanced, but you still have more control. So I think that's a good safe option. I think my general conclusion on this is if you're not sure, don't do it. Unless you really know why you want to do it, it's probably not for you.
Yeah. But I think it's like anything in finance. Sometimes things go through ebb and flows, and, we'll hear about negative gearing constantly, or we'll hear about debt recycling constantly, or we'll hear about SMSFs, and then people get really excited and they feel like they need to do it.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to, what are your long-term goals? Why are you doing it? Do you know enough about it? Is it right for you?
Yeah. I feel like I don't even, I would still be skeptical of myself. I'd be like, maybe not just yet. Like maybe in the future, but not just yet. I think it's become popular though because steak is offering a cheaper way to do it. And I've seen steak ads absolutely everywhere being like, you can do it for $990 for the first year or something like that. But yeah, be wary.
Thanks.
Yay, bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invest or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.